This field speaks to me. If you've played on this field, you remember every moment. From winning state championships to dedicating a season for your coach who passed away. Every person knows if you played on this field, it becomes a part of you. On every Friday night, you're not just playing with your teammates. You're playing alongside any person who's ever put on a Hudson jersey. Thompson Field is so much more than a football field. It's the heart of this town and the glue that holds Hudson together. This field has a very strong history. Throughout the years, many people have contributed to making this field what it is today. Can you feel it?
Hudson's love affair with football began in the late 1800s when American football was taking shape on college campuses across the nation. Back then, Bean Creek created a clear dividing line through Hudson, and rivalries developed between the East Side and West Side high schools. As time went on, Hudson teams not only played each other and other high schools, but also college teams, including Detroit College and Adrian College. The teams, known as the Football 11s, played at Island Park, which was reached by crossing an old swinging bridge at the north end of Church Street. In 1906, Hudson had its first taste of football success on the Island Park field. It was the first time that Hudson went undefeated for an entire season, finishing with an impressive total score of 264-6. Hudson learned the sport of football at Island Park. Today, that park is now a field just west of Murdoch Trail. There was a lot of excitement in Hudson on April 29, 1921. An announcement had just been made at the Hudson Businessmen's Association that G.I. Thompson and his son William R. Thompson had donated a field to the city of Hudson.
The Thompsons came to Hudson back in the 60s after the Civil War. And they was very involved in the Hudson community. Will was quite a sports fan, and he convinced his father in 1921 to donate the property for Thompson's Field and to build quite a elaborate field at that point. And it ended up, it was one of the largest donations ever given to the city of Hudson.
The 5.5 acres of land which was purchased from J.A. Meredith was to be fully equipped for year-round sports such as baseball, football, tennis, track, and ice skating.
Got his father, convinced his father to donate that property, and the real thing at that point was there's a professional baseball team that they had coming to Hudson to play ball, which ended up getting rained out after they had everything done. That was what really prompted the gift.
The Thompsons not only provided the land, but also renovated the old North Branch School at the top of the hill on West Street, making it into a field house, complete with dressing rooms and showers for the athletes. They finished off the field by constructing concrete stands on the slope that would seat up to 500 spectators. At that time, it was considered one of the finest fields in the state of Michigan. On June 14th, a parade started out at Hudson's main four corners and worked its way to Thompson Field for the dedication ceremony. The Hudson Band led the way, followed by the American Legion men, the baseball players, athletic association officials, and city council members. A crowd of 2,000 to 3,000 people were in attendance to hear speeches and watch as the Legion men raised both the American flag and a banner with the inscription Thompson Field as the band played the Star-Spangled Banner. How could the Thompsons know that their remarkable gift would continue to be the glue that holds our town together?
I think they would be extremely happy that it's still a very important part of the community. Like I said previous, they was very community orientated, and that prevailed even into William G. Thompson, who is the Thompson that I knew. I knew him since childhood. They was always very supportive of just about everything that came down through the community, and they would be extremely ecstatic to see that it's still a very important part.
It didn't take long for Hudson to break in their new football field and begin practices and games. The decade of the 20s saw the Tigers perfecting the game. Through disappointing seasons, challenging issues, and thrilling successes, their hopes remain very high.
Of course, every loyal Hudsonite wants a team wearing the orange jerseys to typify the best there is in football. A team of sturdy, bright-eyed, red-blooded boys who are real sportsmen. Boys with determination never to give up, and in the game to play in such a way to make them proud to be a supporter of the orange and black. Coach Donald G. Batchelor, 1926.
By 1929, the pride in the Hudson team was evident, as the team won the Lenawee County Championship for the first time in 20 years. The team's success generated enthusiastic fans, and football became Hudson's most popular sport.
Hudson got behind their team this year and backed them strong. Wherever the Critters went, the fans followed.
The Tigers opened the 1930s with great expectation. The Husky squad, as the team was known under Coach Bosevich, finished second in the county championship, bowing to Blissfield, the county champs, in the final minutes of play with a score of 6-0. Over the succeeding years, Coach Bosevich was followed by coaches Evans, Howland, Isbell, Mailer, and Baker. Coach Baker was a quiet, unassuming sort of fellow who seemed never to get excited. He was described as being as calm as a Sunday in Hillsdale. But Fred Baker knew what it took to lead the Tigers. For the first time in almost one decade, Hudson once again won the Lenawee County Championship. The world was in turmoil in the 1940s. Nazi Germany was expanding across Europe, and the United States entered the war with the bombing of Pearl Harbor in December 1941. Ed Engel took over coaching the Tigers that year after a one-year stint by Coach Fred Trosco, who was hired to lead the team after Coach Baker. As much as Hudson loved the sport, the question arose, should Hudson play football in the midst of a war? In answer, Coach Engel gave a resounding yes.
Prepare these boys for whatever the future holds in store for them. If their future is to be war, prepare them now by having them develop strong, well-coordinated bodies run by clear-thinking minds. If their future is to be peace, as we hope, then preparation for life with the same type of body and mind is important.
Ed Engel, coach.
Those years were rough for the Hudson Tigers, but the spirits remained high. The boys were not just learning to become football players, but were learning to become men. Following a dismal season in 1941, the team called a special meeting that was to be attended by team members only, minus the coach. Together, the boys agreed to keep Coach Engel's training rules to the letter.
If any boy breaks a rule, he will be asked to turn in his suit by the team and not the coach. If any person in town sees a football player breaking one of these training rules, he is asked to tell any member of the team, and the boy will be barred from the team.
It was reported in the paper that the 1942 team compiled a somewhat less than brilliant record of 3 wins and 5 losses. In the final game of the season, Hudson played arch-rival Morenci on Armistice Day, and they were edged out 42-0. The Post-Gazette noted on the game that blocking was entirely absent from Hudson's attack, and the tackling was bad. But the team's record did not dampen the spirits of the boys or the fans. An astounding 350 people turned out for the football's annual banquet that year.
Well, one of those was a description of the 1941 football awards banquet. Now, this is a small community during World War II, and it was just a different place and a different time. 300 people came out to the sports banquet. And my father was one of the speakers. The letters were distributed. And according to the article that has been shared with you, he talked about how football prepared men for going to war. And we can never imagine a statement like that happening at a sports banquet today. But it then, so drawn was America to the realities of World War II.
Guest speaker Ernie McCoy from the University of Michigan said that he was surprised by the number of people who came, not to pay tribute to a victorious team, but a losing team. He said it was a symbol of the sportsmanship existent in Hudson. Years later, Coach Engel entertained his boys at a reunion dinner held at his home. "We didn't win many games," he said, "but we sure did develop some characters."
In the early 70s, my father asked his old team from 1941 to come back to get together. And every year, for a number of years, they'd have a social gathering together. And I'm sure there was lots of exaggeration about the prowess of the team and lots of camaraderie and lots of laughs. All of those men on those teams became very responsible community leaders later in life.
The war ended in 1945, and that same year the Hudson Chamber of Commerce and the Jaycees purchased additional land with the intent to expand the size of the field. By 1946, Hudson had racked up their third LCAA victory under coach George Height. The 1950s saw great teams for Hudson High under the leadership of coaches Charles Wall, Jack Finn, Roy Kramer, and Paul Baldwin. Over a 6-year period, the Tigers won 48 of 53 games, and they were crowned the LCAA champs 4 years in a row. Then, in 1954, the Hudson City Council unanimously passed a resolution authorizing the sale of the city's interest in Thompson Field to Hudson's public schools. William G. Thompson and his brother Edward B. Thompson signed a quitclaim deed enacting the resolution and transferring the city's interest to the school. That same year, the school began plans to move the football field to the west of the original location and renovate the field as a whole. In 1955, the first team to play on the field finished the season with an 8-1 record, taking home the LCAA championship title. That new field must have been an inspiration for the Hudson Tigers. In 1956, hopes were high to defend the LCAA championship title as Roy Kramer took the helm as Hudson's new head coach. It was his first head coach position.
And the 1956 team had a tradition already established of being awfully good athletes in general, and we had 2 or 3 classes that had a combination of a lot of good people. Fortunately, we had good leadership in terms of our coaching staff, and we had a lot of support from the school as well. But tradition, Hudson football tradition, had already established itself by then, and we were just going to continue that on, and we had a lot of good people doing that.
He inherited plenty of grid power from coach Jack Finn, as 18 returning lettermen made up the core of the team. Coach Kramer, together with his assistant coaches Jack Shills and Richard Ford, utilized the talent and developed an outstanding team.
Well, Roy Kramer was probably the best coach I've ever had, remembering that he was surrounded by some good people as well. His assistant coach was Jack Shields, who was a terrific man, and they were young. They related well to us, but Roy Kramer himself was a very tactful guy. He ensured that we were mentally prepared, and more than that, he was assuring us that he would make us physically prepared more so than any coach I've ever had. He was a tactician in terms of conditioning and very fundamental in terms of his teaching the basic rudiments of football.
In his only year at Hudson, Coach Kramer led the 1956 Tigers to their first perfect season in 50 years. Not since 1906 had a Hudson team made such an accomplishment. The Tigers finished the year with a 9-0 record, a total score of 381-24, and took home Hudson's first state championship.
Well, you know, obviously at that age, it was monumental as far as we were concerned. And the beauty of it is that we had so many good friends that played on that team. Not only then that we continued on being good friends, but it was just a very, very important time on a new football program in terms of the stadium itself, because that was opened the year before. So very, very important for a lot of young people. We didn't realize it was as important then as later on in life.
According to Tiger fans, it was the best team in Hudson High School history. After only 1 year at Hudson, Coach Kramer went on to great things, coaching high school football at Dowagiac, Benton Harbor, and East Lansing. He then coached for a decade at Central Michigan. Coach Kramer was awarded the Michigan Class A Coach of the Year in 1964, Division II National Coach of the Year in 1974, was inducted into various halls of fame, and in 1990 became the 6th commissioner of the Southeastern Conference. As a commissioner, Coach Kramer guided the conference in formulating divisional play and the first Division I-A Conference football championship game. The Tigers, under the direction of Coach Paul Baldwin and Rip Kinney, carried Coach Kramer's winning spirit into a 22-game winning streak over the next 3 years. Coach Rip Kinney led the Tigers into the decade of the 1960s, winning the LCAA championship in 1962.
Coach Kinney was always prepared. He had good organized practices. He was always thorough in his preparation, as I said. But one thing he always did is if a play wasn't working, he'd stop practice, explain it to us, and then move on to something else. He wasn't one of those coaches that just kept ramming it down your throat. Then we'd come back later and then we'd get it done and do it right. He wasn't one of those guys that you had to repeat it 25 times to get it done. And I always enjoyed Coach Kinney and got along with him really well. He was a pleasant guy to me.
But prophetically, the 1963 Hudson football season began on Friday the 13th. The year proved to be one in which nothing went right for the Tigers. Injuries to key players and inexperience hindered the Tigers throughout the season. It was the first losing season for a Hudson football team since 1949.
I've been around Hudson football since I was 8 or 9 years old, on the sidelines during the 50s, during the championship teams, and then got into high school and played on either side of my class. They were LCAA champions, but unfortunately my class didn't have the number of football players that the others did, and we were quite unsuccessful, if you will. We were 1-8, and so that always kind of left me with a bitter taste in my mouth that we didn't do better, but we deserved what we got. But since 2010, I've been associated with Hudson again as a scout team coach, and got the pleasure of going to the Dome and Ford Field and all that sort of stuff over the years, and see him win a state championship. And Hudson football is in good hands right now with Coach Rogers.
Then, in 1964, Hudson alum Jack Zimmerman took the helm, coming off an undefeated season as JV football coach the previous year. That year, the Tigers were the dark horse at the beginning of the season, but Coach Zimmerman and the team fought back to win the LCAA championship over Morenci. The hotly contested game had everyone in an uproar right through the final moment of play. The fans watched as the jubilant Tigers carried their coach off the field following their 20-19 win. But unfortunately, an unusually high number of injuries were to be the detriment of the 1965 season, causing Coach Zimmerman to be continually juggling team positions. The season ended with a 1-6-2 record. Then, in 1966, a new head coach was hired. A native of Deerfield, Michigan, Tom Saylor had served as Hudson's junior high football coach and JV coach since 1964, following his graduation from Eastern Michigan University. He built the team back after the harrowing 1965 season and led the 1966 Tiger football team to a notable 5-win, 2-loss, and 1-tie record. The dedicated hard work of the team members from April to November of 1967 paid off. Hudson got their first league championship since 1964 and a number 17 ranking in the United Press International Class B poll. The Tigers ended up 8-1 overall and 6-0 in the league. And then the momentum started building. In 1968, the work and sweat started in the winter with the Sandbags program and continued on through the summer. 21 of the mighty Tigers went to summer camp that year. As a result, they reaped the benefits. The Tigers ended the season with an 8-1-0 record and their second straight LCAA championship. It was truly a great season from the standpoint of teamwork. And then it happened. In 1969, the Tigers had their first perfect season since 1956. There is no doubt this was the year of the Tiger.
There were no superstars, just a great team effort.
Years of hard work paid off as the Tigers ended the season with a perfect 9-0 record, their third straight LCAA championship, and number 2 ranking in the United Press International Class C poll. The decade of the 70s dawned like no other in Hudson's history. The Tigers were coming off a 17-game winning streak, and expectations were high for a great season going forward.
There was high expectations. Sailor came in 66, and by the time 68, he had the team rolling, he had his system in place. They lost their first game, and then they beat everybody the rest of the year. And in 69, we came out with a very powerful team. We knew it was strong, and won every game. So yes, when we got to our year, which was the next year, had the 17 wins, and we went from 17 to 26, but we were under pressure from previous people and people in town. It's like, can you do it? Are you gonna do it? Can you do it? And knowing the guys that were on the team, the players that I played with, I knew that we had as good a shot as anybody, and there was no reason why we shouldn't win every one of those games.
The team and fans were not disappointed. The Tigers swept the 1970 season with another perfect 9-0 record and won the LCAA championship once again.
I expect them to go. There was no reason why they couldn't keep going. I knew a lot of the kids. The junior high kids at that time were beating their opponents. They were big, they were tough. The system that Sailor set put in place went from the varsity all the way down to the junior high. They were running the same plays that the varsity was running. So by the time you get up there, you know the play, you just have to get your head right. And that's what Sailor did. He would get you in a position to do what you already knew what to do and do it to your best.
The Tigers kept on rolling in 1971, finishing the football season with another 9-0 record, making it 35 straight wins. Hudson was the first in the LCAA, rated first in state by the Detroit News, and second in state by the Associated Press. They were the best conditioned team, and according to them, the time spent conditioning was pure heck.
My thoughts were get ready to do the evaluations at the end of each season and talk to each player that's coming back. Let them know they had a chance to be this position or that position, but if they don't get stronger in the upper body or get their conditioning, because we were going to be the best shaped players that ever played football.
The team remained undefeated in 1972, capturing its 6th LCAA championship and becoming the 1972 state champions. Once again, the Tigers proved very tough in the 1973 season. The pride in the team was immense. What can you say about a team that goes 9-0 for the 5th year in a row, is LCAA champion for the 7th year in a row, the Class C state champion for the 2nd year in a row, and establisher of the Michigan High School all-class record of the most consecutive wins? You can say plenty. Plenty about guts, desire, the ability to play under pressure, ability to never give up, and the most important, the ability to play as a team. 9 fine opponents on 9 thrill-packed Friday nights found the 1974 Hudson Tiger football team just as tough, as always, as the Tigers fashioned another perfect season, scoring 322 points to their opponent's 49. Statistics such as these point out the super team effort and team spirit that the squad possessed. It has never been a one-man show in Hudson, and it certainly was not in 1974. 6,000 people jam-packed Thompson Field to see the Tigers come back and overcome a 13-point deficit at the end of the first quarter of the Addison football game and go on to win the game 26-21. School spirit was at an all-time high. Then it happened. In 1975, the Hudson Tigers tied the national record. They increased their state record of 72 games and set the national record on November 15, 1975 in Grand Rapids against Kalamazoo Hackett in the semifinals of the state playoffs. The team arrived back in Hudson to an incredible crowd of their greatest fans. Downtown Hudson was filled with people as the team bus arrived, and the Hudson Tigers were at the top of their game, having won the national record. Then, as all good things must do, the mighty Tigers, before a crowd of 7,000 screaming fans, fell to the Ishpeming Hematites on November 22, 1975, exactly 1 week after setting the national record. It was a heartbreaker. The Tigers had not lost a game in 7 years. It was the end of an era and a remarkable accomplishment for this small Michigan town. Hudson's 72 consecutive wins is still acknowledged today as an outstanding feat in football annals. It was an amazing story of an amazing time in Hudson's history. Coach Tom Saylor was named Coach of the Year in 1975, and the winning streak teams were inducted into the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame in 1976.
It's been a lot of pride. A lot of people stayed in the community, and whether it was through the school or jobs or whatever, but it always, it's a bonding thing that some of us still, we don't live it, but when us guys get together, we still talk about different things, perhaps more in practice than the games, because it was rough. Quitters never win. I have said that many times when I felt like giving up, run my own business, of bad days, but you just think nobody, and then you just stop. You'll never win if you quit. That's the number one thing that I've always took away from what Saylor drilled into us, was quitters will never win.
The pride of that accomplishment continues to reverberate throughout the community.
The tradition, you got tradition at Hudson, like it's endless. And then you got material that was endless. Families, the Malarneys, the Marys, and on and on. There's 12 kids in each family, most of them boys, and a lot of them were girls, who were the mothers who had kids that came on. I was there 13 years, and it was a fantastic experience.
The Tigers continued their winning ways in 1976, completing another perfect season and wrapping up the LCAA championship once again. That was the last season Tom Saylor coached in Hudson, as he and his family moved to Indiana to run a donut shop that he had opened in 1970.
I can visit that town and that football field anytime I want, but I can't live there. You can't live in the past. And I've told many of the players, you can visit it, but you can't live in it. You got to go on with your life. We've had so many wonderful, successful people. Newspaper writers like Bill Mullally. We had doctors. We had lawyers. We've had all kinds of successful people.
Over the next 3 years, Scott Kugler took over as head coach of the Tigers. Adjusting to a new coaching staff did not prove easy for the Tigers, as they finished the 1970s with a mediocre record. As the Hudson Yearbook described the 1979 season that ended with a 2-7 record, even though it was not a good year, the Tigers never quit, and they had a lot of pride and determination. 1980 was a comeback year for the Tigers. Former Hudson football great Phil Lawrence, whose family football tradition dates back to the winning team in 1906, took over as head coach that year.
Well, it's really exciting to be part of that tradition, and it just makes me really feel good inside to know that my family's been represented that way. And yes, my grandfather Frank and my uncle Adolphus, or Dolph, played on the 1906 Hudson team. They scored 264 points, gave up 6, played Adrian, played Hillsdale twice, played at Detroit College, and so on. So that was pretty exciting. 1938, my father, Stephen Lawrence, played for the 1938 LCAA Hudson Tiger Championship team. That a large team at that time, number-wise, was pretty decent, a pretty big squad too. There, I played in the 60s. I was fortunate enough to be on the 1964 team, and we won an LCAA title. And then as a senior, a couple of rookies took over by the name of Saylor and Kern, and boy, that was, they just worked our butt in the ground. It was great. I loved it.
The combined effort of the coaches, the players, and student body made the 1980 season very successful, as the mighty Tigers finished with an 8-1 record, and they won the LCAA championship. Phil Lawrence continued to coach the Tigers throughout the 1980s, leading them through the high points of undefeated regular seasons in 1982 and 1985, and a challenging season to end the decade.
It was exciting, it was gratifying, and again, the attitude and mindsets that we had talked about before with these players. Again, I say all of the players I coached every year worked hard, and they really tried. In 82 and 85, maybe the pieces of the puzzle all fell together. I mean, you can have years where the puzzle and the pieces are pretty, but you don't, and those 2 years, they just kind of felt, really together. In 82, we gave up 5 points on defense. And that was due to the efforts of my defensive coordinator, Pat Luma, and then offensively scored a ton of points, and that was assistant coach Dave Rickard. And again, I've had super coaches throughout my time and players, but it just seems like the pieces fell together in those 2 years. In 82, we went to the semifinals and played Detroit St. Martin de Porres, and we fought them hard. We didn't quit, but they were better. And so it's really been, it's fun. Those are fun seasons when everything that you talk about just falls into place, and it's very, very satisfying. And I'm still close to many of these players, and I think it's because of that attitude about what they do.
Team, effort, and personal pride still meant something. The players were successful because they did not quit.
Well, I just teased Coach Saylor a little bit, but I learned from 2 of the best, Coach Saylor and Coach Curran. And I remember what they tried to instill in me, the attitude and value of hard work and the determination and not to quit and not to give up. And I tried to instill that into my players throughout my time coaching. And then, anybody can raise their hand in the 4th quarter and go like that and put 4 fingers up. Sure you can. But it's what's in here and it's what in your head that determines what you're going to do. And I just know at Hudson, and what they taught me is that you don't stop until the clocks run out. And I tried to pass that along as much as I could to the young men I coached, and I am so proud of all the young men I've coached, no matter what team. And they played that way, and that's a tribute to the coaches I had also at that time. And that attitude of never quitting, that's a tradition at Hudson.
The great coaching and the team's hard work earned Coach Lawrence Coach of the Year in 1980, 1982, and 1985. Coach Lawrence carried the Tigers into the 1990s, finishing his career in 1991. He was followed by Tim Beckler, who took over as head coach and led the Tigers from 1992 through 1996. Coach Beckler distinguished himself as an outstanding coach, leading his team to win the LCAA title in 1993 and posting back-to-back 8-1 seasons in 1994 and 1995. Standing by the side of Coach Beckler throughout his coaching career at Hudson was his assistant coach, Chris Luma. Chris was well known in Hudson, having played quarterback during the 1975 and 1976 seasons under Tom Saylor. And so when Coach Beckler left Hudson, Chris Luma stepped in as head coach in 1997 and would lead the Tigers for the next 23 years.
As head coach, the traditions and things that I brought along with me to the coaching that I did was obviously I played under Tom Saylor, who had a phenomenal, win streak and was the longest one in the nation for a while, still is in the state of Michigan. And so when you get to learn under a guy like that, and then when I started coaching, Phil Lawrence was the head coach, and then Tim Beckler, and these are three just great, outstanding mentors, great coaches, great men. Now they're great friends of mine. And people had asked me why you'd want a pressure situation or coaching job like this, but that was kind of all we knew as we grew up through Hudson, the winning streak going on. And our coach Tom Saylor had told us when I was a junior high player, when you get up to high school, we keep going, you're going to be playing in front of thousands for a national record. And it happened, it came true. So it's kind of the stuff that we had always been under pressure as players, so we knew as coaches how to handle that. And Coach Saylor was just great at preparing his team, so those are things that I watched how he did that when I was a player, and how he motivated kids and how he took them under their wing on the side, not just during football practice. And so great guys like that. And Tim Beckler, he was just a great X and O guy that I learned a lot from, so I was able to bring all that with me to my coaching.
How do you sum up in a few words the career of Coach Chris Luma? Amazing, incredible, outstanding. All those words and more would describe Hudson's football legacy between the years 1997 and 2019. Over 23 years, the Tigers' record was 182-68, 13 LCAA championships, 5 undefeated regular seasons, 5 regional championships, and in 2010, the Tigers brought home the Division VII state championship title.
It was, to lead a team to a state title is your dream as a coach, as players, as a community. And so to get the chance to do that, it was a real storybook type season. I mean, it has so many backstories to it that when we look back, it was just kind of destiny to happen. A lot of great kids there that we were able to keep these kids together, pick each other up if somebody got hurt, somebody just filled in, and so, the game itself was just outstanding. It was 28-26, so it was what a state championship's supposed to be about, with two equal teams going at it. Coach Saylor, who was my coach, was able to be on the sidelines during it, so just a lot of things that were the perfect season for us.
Coach Luma deservingly won many Coach of the Year awards, and he was inducted into the Coaches Association Hall of Fame in 2018. Beyond the game, Chris Luma formed a family. Players who cherished the relationships he built with them described him as a father figure. He was a remarkable coach and leader. He gave his best, and in return, his teams played from their heart, accomplishing amazing things. This small town in rural Michigan has been placed on the map time and time again because of their incredible feats accomplished by its outstanding football teams. LCAA championships, regional championships, state championships, and a national record. Looking back, Hudson has had some remarkable coaches who have inspired their teams to do amazing things. As Hudson has proved since the tradition began in the late 1800s, this is a football town. Grandfathers, fathers, and sons have all played on the same field, and players have become coaches.
But when you have successful programs, whether it's the Green Bay Packers, Alabama football, they always talk about the coach or the coaches. In Hudson football, you've got them all, from back to Coach Jones, to Kramer, to Saylor, to Lawrence, to Beckler, to Luma, and now it's the Rogers era. We've had outstanding coaches. And they were great leaders. They developed boys, turned them into men, taught them what's right and what's wrong. We've been lucky to have the type of coaching we've had at Hudson.
And now we look forward to the next generation of Hudson football. Stepping into the big shoes left by Coach Chris Luma is Dan Rogers, who played for the Tigers in the late 1980s and early 1990s under Coach Lawrence, and who assisted Chris Luma throughout his career.
I felt like I was prepared for the position coaching under Chris Luma for so long. He really prepared me for the expectations and requirements to be the head football coach at Hudson.
Coach Rogers understands what it means to be a Tiger.
What it's all about and what it's always been about. Growing up again and being part of the staff, learned of the tradition of Hudson, and the tradition is hard work, doing things the right way, playing with discipline, playing with toughness. And our focus is never has been and isn't on wins and losses. We just feel if you do the other things, if you do everything right every day, good things will happen for you.
The future is bright for the Hudson Tigers.
So when you look at what's Hudson going to look like in the future, we may look different with uniforms, we may look different with some things we're doing, but what's going to be the same is we want the community to be proud of us on and off the field. We're going to be part of the community, and then when you come watch us play, it's going to be the same thing you saw for many years, and that's we're going to play hard, we're going to play tough, we're going to play for each other, and we're going to be disciplined.
The type of people that live here are different. They work from dawn to dusk, Monday through Friday, all in anticipation of the football game on Friday night. This field has a very strong history, and throughout the years, many people have contributed to making this field into what it is today. That's the beauty of it. This field isn't just a football field. To a lot of people, it's the heart of this town.